Hey everyone, it's your girl Leila. Welcome back to my channel. Okay guys, so welcome to my second episode of Spooktober for 2024. I am very excited to film this video for you guys, and this is going to be on creepy things that I found in the mountains, but Banff edition, because there is going to be a Southern Alberta edition of this at some point. I don't know if it's going to be this Spooktober or next Spooktober, but I found quite a few cool spots in Southern Alberta, but I wanted to showcase just Banff in today's video. Now I have 5 locations today, but the first one is kind of cheating because it is a ghost town, but it's divided into 2 parts and they're on 2 different trails. In today's video, I have 5 spooky places that you can visit if you are planning a trip to Banff this October. So if you guys are not already subscribed, please go ahead, click that subscribe button below. I upload 3 times a week, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. And as you guys know, all of my Wednesday episodes are for Spooktober and they will be spooky. So let's get right into today's video. We're gonna jump into Bankhead first. Now this is the ghost town I was just mentioning that is divided into 2 different parts. There is Upper Bankhead as well as Lower Bankhead. Upper Bankhead is located on the Sea Level Cirque hiking trail, and Lower Bankhead is its own trail, but it's only maybe a 5-minute drive from each other. You do have to get out and walk to explore these locations, by the way. Banff is a tourist spot. Some might even call it a tourist trap. Banff is visited by thousands, hundreds of thousands of visitors every single year from different countries. Doesn't just have to be Alberta and Canada. I'm talking about Banff is one of those places that is visited by people in Europe, by people in America, by people in Asia. It is just one of those towns that everyone wants to flock to because it is absolutely beautiful and there's so many spots to be seen in Banff. But when you get out of that touristy Banff Avenue, you guys know, if you've been there, you know, Banff Avenue is crazy. Now, if you drive a little bit past the highway, you go over the bridge, there is a part of Banff where I guess not a lot of tourists go to. Well, your fair share of tourists go here. They usually go to Lake Minnewanka, but there's so many other cool spots down this road, and Bankhead is one of them. So I'm going to be talking about Upper Bankhead first. Upper Bankhead, as I've mentioned, is located on the Sea Level Cirque hiking trail, and this hiking trail is actually named after the sea level seam, which is the highest coal seam in the area. Upper Bankhead is quite the contrast from Lower Bankhead. I mean, you get the same kind of concrete foundation structures, yes, but Upper Bankhead features the open mining shafts. Now, these are definitely fenced off, so you cannot enter, but there is definitely places where it looks like there's an excavation site there from when they used to mine here back in the day. So Lower Bankhead is quite the contrast. This is where miners started in the morning. Just a little bit of back history on Bankhead. Bankhead was a thriving anthracite mining town. There has definitely been the fair share of coal mining towns that I've spoken about during my Spooktober series over the years, and Bankhead is no stranger to that. It is yet another mining town that has basically dwindled and turned into a ghost town. There is no residents of Bankhead. No one actually lives in Bankhead today, but in its prime, Bankhead had 1,000 residents, and it had a bunch of structures, including a church as well as a cemetery. Most of the buildings from Bankhead's glory days have actually been moved to Banff and Canmore, but the foundations still remain in Lower Bankhead. So Lower Bankhead actually has, I feel like, more buildings than Upper Bankhead. If you had to pick between the 2, definitely do Lower Bankhead first and then go to Upper Bankhead to look at where the mining shafts are. But Lower Bankhead features a lamp house, and this is where miners would go in the morning to pick up their lamps, and at the end of their shift they would put their lamps back, and that's how they would know, you know, if someone was in danger. They wouldn't show up with their lamp, they would be missing a lamp, they'd have to go back into the mine and search for them. So that building is actually still there among some foundations of certain buildings, but the buildings have all generally been moved out of Bankhead. At one point there was a church here, and all that's left over from the church is the steps. Bankhead also had a cemetery at one point, and all of the bodies except for one, I don't know why there's still only one body buried here, but there is still one body buried at the cemetery if you can find it. I'm assuming that it's probably around where the church steps are, because usually, you know, churches had cemeteries back then. So I'm assuming that's where this body is still buried to this day. So Bankhead overall is a really good trail. It is a very easy trail. It's family friendly, it's child friendly. I actually visited here the first time back in, I believe it was 2018, and I came here on Halloween, and I didn't have a map, nothing. I just kind of winged it. I heard about Bankhead, wanted to check it out, and I just followed the trail, walked around the town. But you can download a All Trails map, let's say, and explore the town that way if you are really scared of getting lost here in the woods. But generally it's a quieter spot, I would say, especially on Halloween. We did it in the evening and there was only like one other person on the trail that day. But yes, this is one of my favorite ghost towns, and it is very, very easily accessible. Okay, the next one I have is the Hermit Cabin of Inglismaldi. I talked about this last Spooktober. I remember when I filmed that video, I was actually super sick. I believe I had COVID, and it was on my birthday when I filmed that video. So it was a hot mess, but if you guys do want to check it out, I will leave all the related videos and stuff in the description box below if you want to check out each individual video. Today's is more of like me summarizing all of these spooky places that I've been to in Banff. So the Hermit Cabin of Inglismaldi is definitely one of the creepiest places that I've ever been in the woods. And it is what you think it is. It is an old, abandoned, creepy haunted cabin in the woods. So this one is located just off of Johnson Lake. Johnson Lake is another famous Banff landmark. A lot of tourists come here just for the quiet of it all. Like, it is a touristy spot, but at the same time, it's nothing like Banff Avenue. It's nothing like Lake Minnewanka. I find Johnson Lake a little bit more chill, and for the locals and tourists, this is just one of those places that people go usually to have picnics and stuff like that. So there is quite the few people that walk around Johnson Lake. It is a really easy stroll, nothing too strenuous or anything. I would rate this hike as easy, but if you go off the beaten path just a bit, maybe like 5 minutes into the woods, you'll find an abandoned cabin. Now this cabin was built in 1910 and it was inhabited by Billy Carver. Billy Carver occasionally worked in the anthracite mines, but he really didn't like people. He was a hermit. He only had one friend that would bring him supplies from time to time, but other than that, Billy was rarely seen by people. He lived in this cabin willingly for over 2 decades, until 2 local children actually found him in December of 1937. His health was really dwindling and they took him back into town, where he stayed in an old age home for a while and then passed away. But his cabin still remains. Originally, the cabin had handmade items such as a handmade stove, which is crazy. I don't know how you hand make a stove, but those were the times for it, right? There was a handmade stove as well as a handmade couch, chair, and table at one point. But the cabin today generally is pretty much empty. There is a few odds and ends and older, scrap pieces of metal and stuff like that that can be found here. Don't touch anything. Just keep it as it is if you are planning to visit places like this. This place is haunted by Billy, as you guys can guess. So people have reported seeing his apparition in or around the cabin itself. The cabin is a really cool place to explore, but be really careful and be really mindful, especially if you were taller, because the roof is really, really short here. It's almost like a crawl space. It is so cool though, but just be careful when you are exploring here. This cabin is super, super old and not the sturdiest thing ever, but it survived many, many winters. So it is still standing, which is crazy. The last thing I want to mention about the hermit cabin is if you are planning to visit this location in particular, make sure you have an electronic map downloaded, or a paper map if that's what you're into. For me, I just prefer electronic maps. I like things like AllTrails, and definitely follow an AllTrails map if you are planning to go to this location, because you don't want to get lost in the woods. That's all I'm saying. It's off the beaten path. You have to go off the main trail to go to it. Don't let that scare you though, because I do think that this is still a really cool hike for kids and for adults that want a little scary experience in the woods. But there is no official trail to get here. You're just kind of going through the trees, so make sure you have a map handy. You don't want to miss it first, because it's not really well marked or anything like that. There is no trail markers to indicate that you need to turn right to see the cabin. You just kind of have to know where it is in the woods, so make sure you have a map with you. I don't want any of you to get lost if you're considering going here. Next up, I have Lake Minnewanka. I also have a video on this from back in 2021, and Lake Minnewanka is named the Lake of Many Spirits. So this area is a sacred space to the Stony people. It features a underwater ghost town. So unlike Bankhead, which is very easy to get to and you can go to and see right away, Lake Minnewanka has it underneath the water. So it includes everything. It includes a whole preserved town down there, including a church. Wild, right? So if you are into freshwater diving and you're brave enough to dive into Lake Minnewanka's frigid, glacier-fed waters, you will be greeted by a really cool experience down there of a ghost town underneath Lake Minnewanka. Lake Minnewanka is located in a place called Devil's Gap. Now, anything with the word devil, I don't know, to me is a little bit scary. You know, I just associate it with legends, with, you know, Aboriginal legends. Like, why did they name it that in the first place? You know, there has to be some sort of weird experience that someone had for them to actually name it that, including a lake in BC that has a really interesting backstory that I'm a little bit scared to visit myself, but maybe I will go there at some point. But regardless, Lake Minnewanka is located in what's called Devil's Gap. Lake Minnewanka was named by the Stoney people that inhabited the banks of Lake Minnewanka at one point. They named it Lake Minnewanka originally, but we romanticized it into Lake Minnewanka. And basically it means the lake of many spirits. And this lake was named after a legend. So one of the tribe members of the Stoney tribe decided to go on a hike in the area. He picked the tallest peak in the area so he would have a beautiful view of the lake below. And when he reached the top of the peak, he looked into the lake and saw a fish. And the fish wasn't just a tiny little fish. It was a fish as big as the entire lake. So this was seen as a evil water spirit. And like I said, Lake Minnewanka is named the Lake of Many Spirits. There's not just that one water spirit, but there's also another legend, and you can see this actually at the Banff Trading Post if you are interested in checking it out. It is a half merman, half human, I don't know what to call it. It's just a creature. It is a creepy water creature that is said to be found in Lake Minnewanka, and it is behind glass today. I'll try to include a photo somewhere in this clip, but you can actually go and visit it today. Now, over the years, Lake Minnewanka has gained tons of nicknames. I'm not really sure why, but it was named Cannibal Lake at one point. It was named Devil's Head Lake at one point, and it was named Devil's Lake at one point. So it had really creepy names, and you can just tell by those names that there's, you know, some sort of spirit in this area, and I fully believe that because I had my own paranormal experience here, and it was when I was hiking to Aylmer Lookout one year, the only one time I did Aylmer Lookout. I would love to do that hike again. It was absolutely beautiful, but yes, I do believe something inhabits this area. I did hear, me and my friend both heard screaming while we were on the trail. Now, we originally thought it was human, but we had 3 other people in the group. No one else heard it besides me and my friend. And it was just screaming bloody murder. We actually looked at each other like, did we just hear that? And then we heard it again. It was definitely not a bird or some kind of forest animal or anything like that. I actually read up on this when I got home, and it is a common occurrence actually, and Stoney people have heard it from way back when. They heard screaming in the woods, just different weird sounds that you wouldn't normally hear. So it is said to be some sort of spirit that lives there. Originally, I did think it was human, and I thought someone was getting eaten by a bear, to be completely honest, because it was just like desperate type of screaming, and it was just the craziest thing I've ever experienced on a hike, to be honest. Like, I mean, I've seen like the hermit cabin and stuff, but that's all things that you were expecting to see, you're fully expecting to see, but crazy sounds in the woods, this one takes the cake for me, to be honest. So my other paranormal experience I had that same day, that same trail, is that my camera on my phone, which I always used to vlog, was actually failing. And it was so weird because I had done like a 20K hike a couple days before I did the Onion, and my camera, I always had it in super steady mode. I used to film back then on my Huawei P30 Pro, and it has the option to toggle your, actually my Samsung also has it. It has a feature to toggle on and off your super steady mode. So my Samsung has super steady mode, but my Huawei had just like regular steady mode when you're filming. So when you're filming, it doesn't go like this, right? So that is always on. I never turned it off, and yet most of my videos that day, I would say like 95% of my videos that day, I had to re-edit on my Mac because they all look like this. Like it all was so like warped and just like something just didn't want me to record anything that day. It was so crazy. And yeah, basically I had to like try my best to edit the footage on my Mac and see if I could get things to re-steady, but I never had that experience before or after that, and I always had my Super Steady on. It was still on when I checked that night. Like I just randomly checked my settings whenever I looked through the videos, and I was like, that is so weird. Why do all my videos look like I'm shaking? I looked at my camera settings and sure enough, my steady mode was still on. It was never turned off or anything like that. So yeah, I had some crazy experiences there. I've also heard of other people having their own crazy experiences there. One of my friends almost drowned in that lake, and one of my coworkers said that something always happens whenever she goes there. She either gets injured or one of her friends gets injured. It's just a really interesting place. And if I am lucky enough to go back and experience Aylmer again, I just want to say that I completely and totally respect this land. So it's like Minnewanka. That is the creepiest one out of the 5, I would say. You would never expect a lake to be haunted, but surprisingly there is quite a few lakes that are haunted and cursed and all that. We'll move on to the very last thing, the 5th place that you can visit in Banff that is spooky. So this is the Banff Springs Hotel. I think this was either in my first season or second season of Spooktober. The Banff Springs Hotel was built in 1886 and it was built after a Scottish castle. So this building looks exactly like a castle. It is beautiful, and it is one of those places that, you know, if you have only a limited amount of time in Banff, you need to go here. Just to even look at it, just to even take the iconic photo of it, this place is absolutely spectacular. So, why is the Banff Springs haunted? Well, it's haunted by quite a few ghosts. I mean, it being such an old building, you would expect that. So in the 1920s, a couple was getting married here, and the bride was walking down the grand staircase, and it was said that she either caught her heel on her dress or brushed up against one of the candles that were lining the railing. Basically, she ended up falling to her death, and she never was able to have her first dance with her husband. So she is said to be seen at the ballroom in a white gown, just dancing by herself. People have also said to have seen her walk up and down the stairs with her veiled wedding dress. Now the next ghost that lives in the Banff Springs Hotel is a bellman. This hotel is also haunted by one of its workers that worked there between the 1960s and 1970s. His name is Sam. He's said to love this hotel so much that when he retired, he returned again and again, and he kept working. He also promised when he was still alive that he would haunt this hotel. Yes, and he definitely does. So Sam the bellman died in 1975, and he's said to haunt the room where his old office is located. And now his old office right now is actually a guest suite. Cold spots can be felt by guests on the 6th, 7th, and 9th floors, as well as guests report being pushed off of their beds at night and the pillow being taken out from under them. And the 3rd haunting is probably the saddest one of all, and that is because a family was murdered. An entire family was murdered in one of the rooms here at the Banff Springs Hotel. And guests have seen bloody handprints appear on their mirrors. So much so that they've actually called staff to remove the bloody handprints. So the entire floor of where this murder took place is actually closed to this day. It is permanently closed, and when you ask staff about it, they'll tell you that it's either being renovated or it's permanently closed forever. That is all for today's video. I do hope you guys are enjoying Spooktober on my channel. You guys know how much I love filming this series every year for you guys. So I will see you guys next week with another spooky video on Wednesday. If you are not already subscribed, please go ahead, click that subscribe button below. I upload 3 times a week, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I will see you guys soon with a new video. Bye.